I love the Genestealer cult model range, but arguably they look a bit too organised, too professional. So I'm starting a cultier cult. The first of my 4-armed Emperor appreciators started life as a Chaos cultist. I was picturing a young, rebellious type, as ideologically drawn to the cause as she is genetically. The Chaos helmet was removed before assembly and the auto pistol upgraded for something a little bit louder. The standard Genestealer cult grenade launchers have both of the hands moulded in place. The pistol grip hand's easy enough to remove, but the hand holding the foregrip needs hacking back and then disguising. So I wrapped this in some fine wire that I scavenged from some electrical hookup cable, which really does look the part once it's painted and sells the improvised weapon look a bit more. I'm a big fan of adding tiny little details like these that are just too small to be moulded. I think it just adds a little something. The model was completed with the head from the Genestealer Magus kit, which is a fantastic sculpt and pretty much fit without alteration. All in all, a nice easy start to the unit, but this can definitely get cultier. I wanted Neophyte number 2 to give off a bit more of a creepy vibe, someone who's just a bit too into it. I based the build off of a combination of cult legs and the body from a Necromunda House Corridor Ganger. Careful torso selection and cut placement means that these can be married together quite neatly. Other bodies don't fit so well and need a little help from the green stuff fairy. Anyway, I cleaned up the torso and beveled the edges to help sell the idea that the loose clothing on the torso is tucked underneath the trousers and pouches on the legs. It's easier to do than it is to explain. I knew I wanted this specific pair of corridor arms, as the autogun gives off Fallout 4 pipe rifle vibes, which I don't think warrants further explanation. Unlike the spikes driven into his shoulders, which are made from 1mm aluminium wire and are strictly there to meet the horror quota. I also added longer spikes into his back, adorned with deceased creature miscellany. Alright, so it turns out that it's not that easy to coin a catchphrase, so fair play, Pete. Oh, and if you're wondering, those are Citadel skulls, that's a Neophyte Hybrid head, and this model is done. It's weird how that scenic base appeared from nowhere. I hope I remember to cover that later. Is there enough humanity left in a Skitarius to sustain the Genestealer infection? Or has this cultist simply scooped out the delicious biomechanical insides in order to wear it as some kind of unholy cosplay? Let's not think too hard about it. The Neophyte Hybrid legs will fit inside a Skitari cape with a lot of careful shaping, or considerably less haphazard shaping. In reality, this took about 15 minutes of trial and error, which explains why I've only made one. The icon on the chest was scavenged from one of the arms of the Cult upgrade sprue and glued in place of the original Mechanicus icon. I chose the autogun from the Cadian upgrade sprue because I really need you to understand this. It looks boss, and I wanted the guy to look like he had all of the best gear in the unit. I rounded out the model with a pickaxe, which I think is supposed to be a power weapon, who cares, and the most serious looking head I could find on the Neophyte Hybrid sprue. And once complete, he almost looks a bit like an Inquisitor. Why is all of the organised fighting in the 41st millennium done in pits? There's a serious gap in the lore. Anyway, I was keen to make use of the Chaos Cultist Champion model, since he looks like a bit of a bruiser. And after a bit of friendly de-spiking, I swapped his bolt pistol for a more GSC appropriate auto pistol. I did decide to keep the meat tenderizer on a stick in his other hand, because it's pretty rad and whoever sculpted it definitely deserves an extra 5 minutes of yard time. The Chaos headgear normally covers a hole in the chest, so I thought jam a bit of cable in there and make it look like some sort of mechanical artery running to his heart. Though the other end is going to his small intestine, so it's safe to say healthcare isn't great in this cult. The neck needed a little finessing with the scalpel to accommodate a Neophyte Hybrid head, and the gap was filled with some sprue goo, blended into the rest of the model with Tamiya extra thin cement. I decided he needed a backpack with trophies, because skulls aren't just for Chaos kids. This one came from Acadian, the backpack that is, not the skulls, probably. Once again, the trophy pole was formed from 1mm aluminium craft wire wrapped in the very thin wire that I stole from some hookup cable and adorned with a couple of Citadel skulls. These Chaos Cultist models are absolutely fantastic, and they're really versatile with some simple conversion work. This Kitbash was dead simple, and it looks great, if I do say so myself. Clearly, I'm struggling to come up with snappy names for these guys, but I've already committed to the conceit, so it is what it is. And what it is an icon bearer. Both the Neophyte Hybrid and Cawdor kits have icon bearer models, so I did the old presto changeover to the arms for a nice simple swap, and then repeated the trick by turning the hand flamer into an auto pistol. Magic. I think this is an excellent illustration of just how much the character of a model can be changed with a few simple tweaks. Gun, icon and head swapped. New model. God, I really wish I hadn't committed myself to this names thing. Anyway, we're still in necromundery waters with this one, and if I had to describe the brief, it'd be something like Escher Ganger one-handing a sawn-off shotgun, because stupid is usually pretty cool. I used one of the Genestealer Cult under-over shotguns, but this needed the hand-on foregrip carving back and hiding as I've done on other models. To add a bit of visual weight to that side of the model, I constructed a sling made from jewellery chain. This is fiddly work that's tricky to film, so please forgive the image that's basically only thumbs. The chained up scattergun was married to an Escher Ganger body and limbs, which I pretty much left as Lord Workshop intended. I like the idea that 4th generation hybrids can be almost indistinguishable from humans in the lore, so I figured it doesn't hurt to represent that on the models. In fact, I've generally tried to pick the least Genestealer-y heads for all of these builds. Of course, now I've said that, I'm moving on to the unit leader, who's appropriately a little more alien. Once again, he's a marriage of Cawdor and Cult. The Neophyte Hybrid torsos fit quite nicely to the Cawdor Ganger legs, but there is a fair amount of finessing needed to make a good fit. I probably should have called this guy Johnny Two Swords because, well, you get the idea. I finished off this build with a trophy rack made in exactly the same way as the others, so I won't bore you with the details. And that's it for Juan Dos Espadas. Bring on the pain. Usual disclaimer, this isn't a painting channel, so I'm just going to give a rough outline of what I've done because I'd rather chew off my own earlobes than describe the process of... Anyway, I went for a sort of reverse zenithal on these guys, underpinning the whole model with a coat of Coelia green shade wash to add some cool tones into the shadows. It's a horde army and life is increasingly short, so I'm going for tabletop standards here. And I'm going to let the almost cliched streaking grime do all of the hard work for me. I coated the entire model with the airbrush because, well, it's quicker, and once the solvent evaporated, I started removing it with a cotton bud and paintbrushes loaded with white spirit. Very therapeutic process. If you use odorless white spirit, that is. Now, if you're thinking these techniques look a lot like that grimdark compendium chap, you'd be right. There's really no need to reinvent the wheel here. Oh, time for a scenery change. I actually moved house in the middle of this paint job, as you do. Anyway, here's what the new hobby setup looks like before I get glue and paint all over it, and it's the tidiest it's ever going to look. I really didn't have much left to do after the move, mostly eye stuff, so that's about that. I've completed around 20 of these guys now, but I figured you probably didn't deserve to be subjected to the monotony of each individual build, so that's just a flavour. I really need to press on with the rest of the army, so I'm taking suggestions of what to tackle next. Anything but a major, so I stole ahead.